J.C. Dugard. On June 10, 1991, the life of 11-year-old J.C. Lee Dugard was irrevocably altered when she was abducted from a street in Myers, California, while walking to her school bus stop. This tragic event marked the beginning of an 18-year ordeal that would captivate and horrify the nation, culminating in her eventual rescue in 2009. J.C. was last seen at approximately 8 a.m. on that fateful day. Witnesses reported seeing a gray sedan pull up beside her. Philip Garrido, a convicted sex offender, was behind the wheel, while his wife, Nancy Garrido, was in the passenger seat. Philip forcibly abducted J.C., using a stun gun to incapacitate her before driving away. Despite immediate searches and extensive media coverage, no credible leads emerged, and J.C.'s case quickly became one of the most notorious missing person cases in American history. For nearly 2 decades, J.C. was held captive in the Garridos' backyard in Antioch, California. During her confinement, she was subjected to repeated sexual abuse by Philip Garrido. He constructed makeshift living quarters, including tents and sheds, where J.C. was kept hidden from the outside world. Over the years, she gave birth to 2 daughters, whom she named Angel and Star, when she was just 14 and 17 years old. The children were raised in this isolated environment, unaware of their mother's past and the circumstances of their birth. Philip Garrido, who was on parole for a previous kidnapping conviction, managed to evade detection despite numerous violations of his parole conditions. His wife, Nancy, played a significant role in the abduction and was complicit in the abuse. The couple maintained a facade of normalcy, often taking the children out in public, which further obscured J.C.'s identity as a kidnapping victim. The turning point in J.C.'s case came in August 2009, when Philip Garrido visited the University of California, Berkeley, with his daughters. A campus police officer, noticing the unusual behavior of the group, became suspicious and initiated an investigation. This led to Garrido being summoned to a parole office, where he was separated from the women and children. During this encounter, J.C., who was using the alias, Alyssa, initially claimed that she was a battered wife in hiding. However, as the investigation progressed, she eventually revealed her true identity as J.C. Dugard. On August 26, 2009, J.C. was officially rescued, marking the end of her 18-year captivity. The news of her return sparked widespread relief and joy, as well as a renewed focus on the issues of child abduction and the failures of the justice system that allowed her captors to evade justice for so long. Following her rescue, both Philip and Nancy Garrido were arrested and charged with kidnapping and sexual assault. In April 2011, they pleaded guilty to the charges. Philip Garrido was sentenced to 431 years to life in prison, while Nancy received a sentence of 36 years to life. The case raised significant questions about the effectiveness of the parole system and the oversight of sex offenders, leading to public outcry and calls for reform. Since her return, J.C. has worked to rebuild her life and that of her daughters. She has authored 2 books, A Stolen Life and Freedom, My Book of Firsts, detailing her experiences and the challenges of reintegration into society. J.C.'s story has become a symbol of resilience and hope, inspiring many who have faced similar traumas. Her case has also prompted discussions about the importance of vigilance in protecting children and the need for systemic changes to prevent such abductions in the future. Melissa Highsmith was born on May 12, 1970, to Alta Apantenko and Jeffra Highsmith. The family was living in Fort Worth, Texas, where Alta worked as a waitress. In the summer of 1971, Alta, newly separated from her husband, was in need of a babysitter for her young daughter. In response to a newspaper ad seeking childcare, a woman contacted Alta, expressing interest in the position. Despite never meeting the woman in person, Alta hired her based on a phone conversation, a decision that would have devastating consequences. On the morning of August 23, 1971, the woman, described as well-dressed and wearing white gloves, arrived at Alta's apartment. While Alta was asleep, the woman told a roommate that she had come to pick up the baby. Melissa was last seen wearing a pink dress and white sandals as she was taken away. The woman left with Melissa, and that was the last time Alta would see her daughter for over 51 years. Immediately after the abduction, Alta reported Melissa missing, and a massive search ensued. Flyers were distributed, and local media covered the story extensively. Despite the efforts of law enforcement and the community, no credible leads emerged, and Melissa was presumed kidnapped. Melissa was raised by her abductor, who named her Melanie Miyoko. For the next several years, she lived just 10 minutes away from her biological family, unaware of her true identity and the circumstances of her abduction. The woman who raised her was reportedly abusive, restricting her freedom and isolating her from the outside world. Melissa later recounted that she was not allowed to play outside and was often told that she had brain damage, a lie used to justify her captor's controlling behavior. At the age of 15, Melissa ran away from home, seeking to escape the oppressive environment. She faced significant challenges on the streets, struggling to survive and make sense of her life. During this time, she had no knowledge of her biological family's ongoing search for her. Throughout the years, the Highsmith family never gave up hope of finding Melissa. They continued to celebrate her birthdays, holding parties in her honor and keeping her memory alive. Alta, now in her 70s, expressed that she had nearly lost hope at times but was always encouraged by her family to keep searching. The family utilized various methods to try to locate Melissa, including age-progressed photographs released by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, and DNA testing as technology advanced. In 2022, the family decided to take a DNA test through the ancestry service 23andMe, which would ultimately lead to a breakthrough in the case. The test revealed a match with one of Melissa's 3 children, confirming her identity and allowing the family to reconnect after decades of separation. On November 26, 2022, the Highsmith family was finally reunited with Melissa, who had been living under the name Melanie Walden. The emotional reunion was filled with tears of joy and disbelief as they embraced after years of searching. Melissa expressed her shock at discovering her true identity and the life she had lived without knowing her family's love and support. In May 2023, Melissa legally changed her name back to Melissa Highsmith in a heartfelt court proceeding attended by her family. The courtroom erupted in applause as she reclaimed her identity, marking a significant milestone in her journey of healing and reconnection with her roots. Despite the joy of reunion, the Highsmith family faces challenges in seeking justice for Melissa's abduction. The statute of limitations for criminal charges related to her kidnapping has expired, which complicates the possibility of prosecuting the woman who took her. However, the Fort Worth Police Department has committed to continuing their investigation to uncover any additional information regarding Melissa's abduction and the circumstances surrounding it. Elizabeth Fritzl. The case of Elizabeth Fritzl is one of the most harrowing and disturbing instances of familial abuse and captivity in modern history. Elizabeth Fritzl was born on April 6, 1966, in Amstetten, Austria. She grew up in a troubled household, with her father, Joseph Fritzl, exhibiting controlling and abusive behavior. Reports suggest that Joseph began abusing Elizabeth when she was as young as 11 or 12 years old. As she entered her teenage years, Elizabeth attempted to escape her oppressive home life by running away on several occasions. However, she was always found and returned to her parents, where the cycle of abuse continued. On August 28, 1984, shortly after Elizabeth turned 18, Joseph Fritzl lured her into the basement of their home under the pretense of needing help with a door. This basement had been secretly converted into a prison chamber, specifically designed to hold her captive. Once inside, Joseph incapacitated her by holding a chloroform-soaked rag over her face, rendering her unconscious. When she awoke, she found herself in a dark, soundproof cellar, handcuffed and unable to escape. Elizabeth's imprisonment lasted for 24 years, during which she endured unimaginable suffering. Initially, Joseph kept her chained to a pole and used a dog leash to restrict her movement. The cellar was poorly ventilated, leading to health issues due to inadequate air circulation. Elizabeth was provided with minimal comforts, including a small heater, a television, and a radio, but these were insufficient to alleviate her dire situation. The abuse began almost immediately. Joseph Fritzl subjected Elizabeth to repeated physical and sexual assaults, often beating her if she resisted his advances. He would enter the cellar several times a week, bringing food and supplies, but these visits were primarily opportunities for further abuse. Elizabeth became severely malnourished, suffering from vitamin deficiencies and respiratory problems due to the poor air quality in the cellar. The psychological toll of her captivity led her to experience dissociative states and severe depression. During her captivity, Elizabeth gave birth to 7 children, all fathered by Joseph. The births occurred in the confined space of the cellar, with no medical assistance. The first child, a boy named Alexander, was born in 1984. 3 of her children, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, were taken from the cellar shortly after birth and raised by Joseph and his wife, Rosemary, who were led to believe they were foundlings. The remaining children, including a boy named Michael, died shortly after birth due to the lack of medical care. Joseph cremated Michael's body and disposed of it without any investigation. To cover up Elizabeth's disappearance, Joseph Fritzl manipulated the situation by forcing her to write letters to her family, claiming she had run away to join a cult. He presented himself to the authorities as a distraught father, expressing concern over his missing daughter. This deception allowed him to continue his abuse without raising suspicion for years. The turning point in Elizabeth's case came in April 2008 when her eldest daughter, Kirsten, fell seriously ill. Joseph took her to a hospital, where medical staff became suspicious of the family's circumstances. During this visit, Elizabeth seized the opportunity to reveal her identity and the truth about her captivity. On April 26, 2008, authorities arrested Joseph Fritzl, leading to the eventual rescue of Elizabeth and her surviving children from the cellar. Joseph Fritzl was charged with multiple offenses, including rape, incest, false imprisonment, and manslaughter due to the death of his infant son. In March 2009, he pleaded guilty to all charges and was sentenced to life imprisonment. The case garnered international attention, highlighting the failures of the social and legal systems that allowed such abuse to occur over decades. Following her rescue, Elizabeth Fritzl was placed under police protection and relocated to a secret location to ensure her safety. She has since worked to rebuild her life, focusing on her mental health and the well-being of her children. Elizabeth has shared her story in various interviews and documentaries, raising awareness about the issues of abuse and captivity.